Hello, everyone. Welcome back to This Week in Guns, brought to you by Patriot, Patch Company, FFL Payments, Traditional Arms, and MAF Corporation. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew Rosier, and I'm joined by the Rat Man. What's poppin', Ratty?
Not a whole lot. I'm having a nice time going for a walk in the woods with my authentic 1-to-1 to scale 1950s, late 1950s Italian milsurp LARP. You can see I have my helmet that doubles as a tactical spaghetti strainer, and I have my rifle, which is the tactical spaghetti shooter.
Yeah, no, this is all very high end. This is, I guess, in some ways, it's like a little preview of a coming Fudd Blaster that I have very confused feelings about.
Yes.
And again, this will all be fully explored, but there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in the little bit of time that we've been away. As you guys, some of you guys know, I literally last Thursday had oral arguments in the 11th Circuit in Jacksonville, Florida, and then the following morning at 8:30 a.m. had to be in the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia. So it was hell. And mooted those cases several times for that week to pull it off, and then I went and crawled into a hole and disappeared for a minute. But now we're back, and the world has been what it is while we've been gone, and made sure there was plenty of stuff for us to cover when we get back. So the first things first is, let's talk about the thing that I have gotten so many DMs saying, hey, you need to make sure you talk about this. And it is the Frankfurt Armory, Franklin Arsenal Antithesis Reformation gun, which over the past just couple days, this story has gotten sillier and sillier. So we've got this tab from The Smoking Gun. Trump's ATF reclassifies Franklin Armory Reformation and Antithesis. A win for Franklin Armory. The move is another effort by the Trump administration to weaken federal gun laws. But is it, though?
Is it? Is a very interesting question. Of course, a smoking gun is I think it's every town's pretend to be journalists outlet.
Right.
So it's obviously written from a very extreme slant. And they have chose to be very upset about Trump's ATF electing to settle some cases, right? They were obviously very upset about the FRT settlement, which is strange because as much as these guys decried it as a horrible loss, and then other people were calling it a big win, it's probably more of a nothing burger / ATF victory. And I think that this particular development, this particular settlement, isn't substantially different.
Right. So there was the Reformation, right, which was the churro gun. That was the basically, it's not a rifle, so it's just a firearm, so we can have it have a 14-inch barrel or whatever, that got all tied up. This isn't that. This is the Antithesis, which was rifled, right? But the idea is, and this was basically an AR-15, the idea is that they designed and intended this thing from the beginning to fire more than one projectile. So to have a ammunition load that had multiple projectiles in it. The way federal law works, well, the way law works under English common law systems, is you have to define what's prohibited, right? And so the definitions that affect what is a short-barreled rifle, what is a short-barreled shotgun, et cetera, right? They specify that a single projectile, right, basically per round goes through in terms of a rifle. With a shotgun, has to be a smooth bore. And so then the catch-all is firearm. And as long as the firearm isn't capable of being concealed on the person, then it's good, right? And there's back and forth as to what that is, but The safe one is an overall length of 26. So there was this lawsuit over it, right? And Franklin does a pretty good job of trying to make sure that basically the government sticks to the law as written. The smoking gun says that Franklin Armory exploits loopholes. Well, in the legal industry, we call that following the law, right? And so Franklin Armory tends to keep the government in actually following the law. Lawsuits going back and forth. Oh, they're going to settle it, right? They're going to settle the lawsuit with the Trump administration. That's great. Except what happens every single freaking time we settle with the government, right?
The government goes back on its word because you can't. The federal government is not actually, it can't actually legally bind itself to always favoring a particular interpretation of a criminal statute based on a civil settlement. If they could, it would be bad for everyone because you have like clown world government law interpretation at that point.
Right. And so here we have their settlement agreement. And again, if it worked this way, and I'm getting deja vu from the NAGR stupidity that happened there. If it worked this way, it would mean that whoever was friendly with the government would just be like, haha, wink, wink, let's settle our lawsuits with whatever interpretations we want.
Right. The obvious thing to go after there is that this was like early, 20 years ago, right? Whenever AR-15s were first getting popular, Giffords tried to, not Giffords, I think it was Everytown or precursor to Everytown, one of the anti-gun groups tried to revive something that anti-gunners had tried to do before the assault weapons ban by having the ATF determine that the AR-15 was readily restored to be a machine gun because the AR-15 had originally by Armalite designed to be a machine gun, and the Colts or whatever that were on the market were not substantially different, even with the Colt denials, right? They were trying to get the ATF to say that, well, this is just one step away, and that's certainly too close for a gun that was originally designed to be a machine gun. So, the reason we don't want the federal government to be able to settle away its ability to interpret a statute as the statute is written is, of course, it's a big separations of power thing, right? The executive and the judicial should not be able to make a handshake and say what Congress says no longer matters because we got this one. Like, we'll just pretend Congress doesn't exist. That's bad. But the specific way in which it would be bad is you don't want Giffords or Everytown or whatever to go to an ATF that's friendly to them and say, we're suing the ATF for not saying that this is a machine gun.
Yeah.
And the ATF goes,
be like, we agree.
Oh no, all AR-15s are machine guns.
Right.
You don't want that level of silliness to be possible.
Yeah. So what actually happened here, though, which is interesting, this is procedurally kind of weird, though, right? Because they were on appeal to the Eighth Circuit, and it wasn't exactly clear how that was going to go. They were winning in the district court, but the case was on appeal, and so it was all getting messed up. Here's what they don't want to tell you. If the government is actually being friendly to you, they're allowed to drop their appeal. Now, the elites don't want you to know this. They want you to think that you have to do this stupid shit here, but whatever. So they're like, oh, what a big win, whatever. We won for the gun rights because we got this weird settlement agreement that says they're only going to enforce this interpretation, not against us, or blah, blah. Franklin starts posting about how they're going to, like, this thing's coming out now and it's going to be good to go. And they had the 5.56, well, not 5.56, right? It was designed and intended for their 5.55 and a quarter triplex round.
223 chamber homolog shot shell multi-projectile thing.
Yeah, the 223 triplex or whatever. And then there it is. Who could have ever imagined ATF issued on August 29, 2025, ATF issued an open letter, reclassified the Reformation and Antithesis. The open letter implemented a settlement agreement, which classified these weapons as firearms under the GCA, but not subject to the controls of the NFA. The open letter only applies to the 2 models listed in the letter in the specific configuration that was the subject of the settlement agreement. Other short-barreled firearms are not covered by the settlement agreement, even if they are being branded as Reformation or Antithesis firearms. What does this mean?
The problem, the problem here is that the way the settlement shook out, the ATF was only willing to they were willing to rescind their open letters and then contradict them, saying, we got this one wrong, we'll correct it. Their open letters only applied to the as submitted examples Franklin Armory had submitted,
which when they chambered in 45 Colts.
Yeah, it was 45 Colt or 10, which is substantially different than this new, never before seen 223 chambered homolog shot, multi-shot shell thing.
Yeah.
It might be anyway substantially different, and ATF feels that they would need to have a separate inspection and determination about that, because 45 Colt being what it is and the objective design features they put into the 45 Colt and 410 may not actually directly translate to something that you could just sling 223s through.
Right. Yeah. So and also there is long-standing industry practice of shot, multi-projectile,
right, rat shot existing. Right. So
yeah. No, I'm saying like even the judge and the and a lot of earlier like game getter type firearms that were 45 410, they weren't really rifles, they were something else, right? They were shotguns that could fire a slug a little bit, more like it's very weird, but I guess that's to say it's a different question to say something is 45/410, which is an understood chambering, and 223 triplex, right? So, and then after this, it was pretty brutal. It was sad to see it because I want to see all this stuff come down, right? But Franklin pulled it off of his website. It's all happened in the blink of an eye. And
they put out a thing saying that they would refund customers, and that they feel like it sounded like they didn't say this, but it sounded like they were saying they think the ATF is reneging on this deal.
I think that they didn't realize that they were playing cards with the devil.
Probably true. They feel like they're reneging, but if you read through the settlement, the ATF's kind of doing what it has to. Now, the thing about this settlement that really strikes me as odd, and again, I like Franklin Armory more than I do Rare Breed, but in my opinion, I'm still going to say the only reason that you would settle when you're in the position that either of these companies are in is because you want to make money and you're not so concerned about the outcome of the great big chessboard of gun rights. You don't really care what that looks like so long as you've got the ability to make money at the end of the day. Because at the district court had ordered that ATF establish objective criteria. Maybe that's in the form of the rulemaking. It probably would have had to have been in the form of a rulemaking to state what it means for something to be a firearm because it is potentially chambered for multi-shot projectiles, right? This would have been, is to the extent that this whole antithesis idea opens up some loophole in the NFA or breaks new ground that's somehow fertile for making things that are short-barreled rifles that aren't actually short-barreled rifles. To the extent that that exists, the ATF having to clarify, what is and isn't is that windfall, right? An objective criteria that everybody else could make guns to. This settlement made it so the ATF doesn't have to do that anymore.
Right.
But then ultimately just made it so that ATF has to reverse the standing that they had taken in an open letter. Is that slightly more concrete than the Rare Breed settlement? Maybe, because in the Rare Breed settlement they didn't get that open letter.
Yeah, they didn't get. But the simple fact is they like this. If you were being very, very critical of the like agreement you were entering into with the government, you could catch this. I don't want to fault them too much because it what this looks like to me is that they felt like they were dealing with like reasonable human beings operating in good faith. They were not. They were dealing with the government. So
Right.
that it just looks as simple as that. But hey, I actually have I feel like we're heading towards the end of restrictions on barrel length in general. So this might just be a speed bump. And also, just to push back on one thing you said that the only reason you do this is to make money. Well, I actually think there is one kind of nit here, which is while it's on appeal, you do face downside risk, right? You have substantial downside risk of getting an adverse ruling. I don't know how the FRAC, which was the people litigating it, perceived their risk, right, going forwards in the appeal. I don't know, but that could have been a thing. But that said, devil's advocating aside, it was probably just that they wanted to make money.
Right, because I mean, if you're that worried about an adverse ruling, it's like why has the case been brought in this instance? Or if
Right.
you're not bringing the case to win it, why'd you bring it? Did you bring the case to hope that you could bait the government into sort of a never before seen settlement that means about nothing?
Right.
If that's what you wanted, then you got it. I just don't know what good that does you.
Silly gooses. But hey, well,
What are you gonna do?
what you gonna do? Moving on. Okay, so this we sat here kind of debating, do we talk about Charlie Kirk thing? And while we were agreeing that we shouldn't talk about it, we started talking about it, and we're like, actually, no, we should probably kind of talk about it because there is a gun angle to it. I think in general, this isn't really a gun question, right?
It's like a second order, like as far as the implications of this, it's obviously horrible, right?
Right.
But the implications, how it implicates guns in this instance, is like a second or third order thing. It's not. Right. Most people that are talking about
very
this,
far down.
right? Most people who are talking about this seriously aren't talking about it from a gun angle.
Right.
And the people who are probably kind of unserious. And of course, the best evidence of this is, initially, like the blurbs being spread by anti-gunners were something like, "This is why we need to ban assault rifles and assault weapons." And like maybe the greatest irony then is this was a quote unquote weapon of war, at least maybe at one time it was.
At one point, yeah.
It was a Mauser 98 pattern rifle that has since been sporterized less than tastefully.
Right. Kind of a like hack job. And so, when we started talking back and forth, the gun question on this is interesting, right? Because this was people keep saying Mauser 98, and it's certainly, a cock on open Mauser action, but it just looks a little weird to me. The scope mounts are all weird, right? It's possible that this could have been a commercial Mauser receiver. I feel like it's more likely that this was one of the, great many imported Mausers that then got it did to them.
Converted with a sporter profile barrel to 30-06.
30-06, which generally requires notching the top of the receiver, or relegating your rifle to only using soft point ammunition. So the interesting thing is when they first found this gun, right, they said that they were going to disassemble it to search for importers' markings. Okay. When you look at this gun and the configuration it's in a sporter profile stock. So that's with the bobbed stock to where most of the barrel is, extending beyond the stock. There's no upper handguard. There's not a lot of places to hide an import mark on this. And
right.
so
and
the real point here is that before 1968, you didn't have importers' marks on guns, at least not mandatorily, right? And so the whole thing that makes a imported firearm traceable, quote unquote traceable, is the information on the importer, because guess what ATF doesn't have? Mauser Obendorf's factory records and figuring out how that wound up at Bud's gun shop, right?
Yeah, the acquisition and disposition of a rifle that was potentially used in a war and then was captured by one of multiple militaries and ended up at one of multiple depots and got sold by one of multiple companies to get imported by one of multiple people to the US. And it's not until it's here that they'd be able to have a paper trail.
Exactly. And so they said that they were disassembling this gun to look for an import mark. And that told me right away, I was like, I think this was a pre-68 import, because so there was a long period of time, well, there's a relatively short period of time after 68 where the rules were still kind of unclear and they would kind of hide the import markings, but these were usually under upper handguards, like stuff that was easy to take off and verify. Something in this configuration, it doesn't make any sense unless somebody was not following their, requirements. And
another potential option could be that originally it was an 8 Mauser gun or whatever other caliber it was in and was import marked on the barrel, and someone somewhere along the line said that would be a great deer getter, but I want it in 30-06 and paid a gunsmith to take the old barrel off, put the new barrel on. There's no legal requirement to remark importers' marks on the new barrel or the receiver or anything. So once the gun's out of the importer's hands, it could have that undone.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, it's totally legal. And so I think there's one of two most likely scenarios here. Either one, this was a Bannerman gun, which was imported and then made into 30-06 here to sell in the,
pre-68 times.
Pre-68 times. Or two, this was imported whenever the heck, and the dude's grandpa, who he took it from, rebarreled it or paid someone to rebarrel it. Either way, the gun winds up untraceable. And so they literally pointed out the problems with, like, oh, this is the danger of like untraceable guns. I forgot who was it again?
There was an anti-gun article that quoted a former ATF agent saying that they fear that this event is going to bring, like, I guess, like other ne'er-do-wells attention to the fact that you can get powerful, accurate rifles that are hard to trace. Like, it seems like they're going to try and pretend that there's like a pre-68 loophole or whatever.
Right.
When of course, like, the data that the ATF was forced to put out during the Biden years, of course, the reason they were doing it was to be anti-gun, but the data is kind of enlightening to see that by the time a gun is sold 2 or 3 times, like two or three person-to-person sales of the gun, or by the time the gun is older than 5 to 10 years, the chances of tracing it drops off precipitously. The chances of being traced at that point just basically evaporates. The vast majority of guns in this country are not quote-unquote traceable then at that point.
Because you have to remember, the trace only goes to the first retail purchaser. So it doesn't make any sense. It's all stupid. And then the one other thing that I think we should point out, a lot of people always talk, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists or whatever. Ivan, I liked the way you put it about this gun.
So, like, I've seen a lot of theories, like he is a professional Israeli sniper or something, just like a lot of bizarro stuff, right?
Yeah,
like a lot of other. And okay, I'm not a person that just will go ahead and take the first version of events that I ever hear. I do like to try and be somewhat skeptical about these things. I am not willing to believe any conspiracy theory that says that this was a professional or this was a paid hit or this guy was some sort of an expert, because look at that gun, dude. There is only one way a gun like that happens, and there's 2 ways you can look at it. It either happened because someone is so dumb everything they do is a perfect accident, or it's the sort of person that does everything 100% on purpose because he knows what he's doing. It's amazing that bolt clears that scope. It must be incredibly close. The scope
I feel like I feel like this has to be one of those things where you wiggle the bolt as it's going back.
Right? Like it's scraping on it. Like
We are using
off the scope.
1 1/3 scope rings.
Yes, like it's barely mounted on the front because it kind of looks like it ought to be shifted forwards.
Right. Like the eye relief, I can already tell.
Like that's just like old man with neck problems can't crane his head forward, and so he just puts it all the way back on the stock.
Yeah. This thing is cracked. It's wrong.
Like,
Okay.
even if you were trying to frame like someone who doesn't know what they're doing putting a gun together, you could never do it this perfect.
No.
There's you can't make this in a laboratory. You can't make the like poorly set up Sporter Mauser in a lab this well. You can't.
Yeah, you can't. It's impossible to do it without satirizing it.
Like with like lab grown diamonds, they can tell because they don't have the correct imperfections.
Right.
This is not a lab grown diamond.
Yeah.
This had to have come from the ground, pressure over millions of years or whatever, in the heart of a volcano. The only way this is coming out.
The only this is pure dipshit like gun having. Yeah. So that's and like I said, we're not, because God, if anything you say about this doesn't get translated into whatever the fuck, we're not saying anything. This is obviously like a massive social moment. People are really forming ranks around this incident, and so we just wanted to talk about the gun angle that somehow, some way, anti-gun people just like,
well, if it's not an assault rifle, it's an accurate. Maybe the little catchphrase you could take away from this is that it doesn't matter what gun it is. They just want to ban guns. Like they're talking about how powerful and accurate a rifle like this is. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, how powerful and accurate a like very clearly amateur, like the scope is not mounted to it. Like this is an RNG machine, right?
And how how many years we've had to listen to them say, you can keep your hunting rifle. We don't want those. Except this is that. This is
way worse. Like you could go to Pawn Center and spend $300 and get the Savage with the Accu trigger and the Nikon on it, and you'd vastly outclass this firearm.
Almost certainly, but like Chat GPT prompt, show me a hunting rifle. This is what it looks like. Like you close your eyes and say, what does it look like when Grandpa hunts? It's this gun. Like
that's true.
Like what's the there's some sort of a meme or a saying about this where it's like everybody's concerned about having like the perfect caliber, and everybody's so concerned about their gear, like what size magazine should I use in my AR when I hunt? And like rifles like this have taken more animals off the in hunting off the face of the earth than you're ever going to bother with your like, what grain weight should I use? That they were using FMJ to do.
Some dude just
so yeah, it's like this is the hunting rifle, and there's the calls already. They want to ban it, and what's the justification they'll use to ban it? Well, it sounds like they're trying to hone in on what's hard to trace, very old gun.
Hard to trace, and it's strong. It's like, okay. Thank you for being honest.
It's too inaccurate. It's impossible to use for self-defense. It's only useful for assassinations. Like, come on, dude. Just be honest. Do you want to ban them all? We can just cut to the chase.
I just do. This is my favorite of your outfits, though. So I think this is just great. For you audio listeners, he's what? That's that Halo map.
Timberland from
Timberland. He's got a BM-59 and a pasta strainer on his hat. It's just perfect. It's just solid.
And the Italian Expeditionary Force. Sent to Bellow Woods.
Yeah. So next up we've got this is an interesting one. This is them trying to the Representative Harold Rogers of Kentucky. He's trying to claw back the the momentum they had in the SBR business, right? So this is HR 5342, which is a spending amendment that targets short-barreled firearms and silencers. And it's kind of interesting how it pulls it off. So Section 618, none of the funds appropriated herein may be used to enforce the NFA regarding any firearm for which the tax imposed is $0 pursuant to the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's really funny.
I just want to cut in. The important thing that this would fix is that the changes in the Big Beautiful Bill currently doesn't keep this at $0. Manufacturers don't pay the per time tax, but currently they do still face all of the same liability they faced before, and all the same fees and charges and costs, and the compliance costs that an FFL may incur. Of course, there's some that shirk that to some extent, which isn't wise. But if you dot your I's and cross your T's and you're making tens of thousands of suppressors, like many big companies are, you have substantial compliance costs tied up in that because of what the NFA requires. You have to mark and inventory these things and handle them along the way. Currently, the Big Beautiful Bill doesn't change that, so that cost will continue to be passed on to you as a consumer. Now, this doesn't explicitly get rid of that problem, but it does prevent the ATF from spending any of its money or any of its budget on enforcement against the things that now the tax is $0. So sort of in a pod racing way, it would make it so that the ATF couldn't try and clamp down on FFLs, right? So there's some relief given to FFLs in this instance, but then there's also relief passed on to people who, for example, see now that you can just have a short-barreled rifle for $0, and they just go, "It's okay, I'm just not going to pay the $0. What's the difference?" So then these people would be given a little bit of relief as well.
Yeah. So then here's the interesting part, right? Notwithstanding any other provision of the law, herein and hereafter, no violation of federal law shall accrue, and no person shall be considered in violation of the National Firearms Act or any other federal, state, or local law that incorporates by reference the National Firearms Act with respect to a firearm described in A1. I don't know if they get to do that.
I don't know if they can do that, but what they word it very weaselly there. What they're trying to do is, not all states, but a lot of states, you have some scheme of regulating suppressors on their own. And a lot of states just point to the federal definitions. They say it's whatever the feds say it is, or it's regulated however the feds say it is. A lot of these states will also say you cannot have a suppressor in this state, unless it is possessed in compliance with whatever the feds say is required for possessing it legally at the federal level. What this is trying to do is make it so that that state law cannot be used against you, even if you didn't register it. Because the first sections there are making it so ATF cannot come after you. ATF cannot use its money. ATF cannot use its buddy money to come after you for short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotgun suppressors. This section B is making it so even if you live in a state that incorporates by reference the federal definition of suppressor or short-barreled rifle or short-barreled shotgun, they cannot enforce that law against you.
But it's saying more broadly than that, right? It says herein and hereafter, no violation shall accrue. And so, like, I just don't think you get to do that in a spending bill.
It's like preemption, sort of, at the federal level,
right? But you can't, like, you have to explicitly do that, and you don't get to do, like. And
I don't know if I agree. I don't know if you can pull it off in the spending bill, but it's preemption of state laws that incorporate by reference. So maybe you can do that.
So no, the right way to do that, the way that this is always done is you are in compliance, right? Is the law saying is deemed to be in compliance, right? That's how you handle it. So this is weird.
Instead of saying you're in compliance, which would
they're saying you didn't violate it. You didn't violate the text of a law that says a tax shall be accrued and registration shall happen.
It says that you're not in non-compliance. instead of
Yeah.
saying you are in compliance, which is
It's weird.
funky.
Yeah, it's very weird. But hey, it's cool that they're trying. And I think it's funny. So
I will take strange ideas over no ideas whatsoever any day of the
right,
week.
any day of the week, any day of the week. And you know what else I'll take any day of the week? Zero Compromise Holsters and Gear from Traditional Arms LLC. Guys, you got to go there and get the holsters. You got to get the holsters, the Stay Put sauce, the Minimalist EDC wallet, the EDC dump tray, Tech Talk Large, Surefire X300 Turbo, Dagger Tumbler, Streamlight TLR 7X, Streamlight TLR 7X Sub. All of this stuff is subject to our discount codes that are industry finest discount codes, and that is Fudbusters or Ratman. Whichever one of us you like the most, use that coupon code and we're going to get a little kickback. But guys, check them out, dude. TraditionalArms.com, Florida company of Zero Compromise holders. And next up, this is an interesting one. Florida, you know, I did on this channel a while back a video on Florida's gun laws and how kind of like weird they are. One of very few states to just categorically ban open carry. And state courts are weird. Like every state has weird courts, but in Florida, the first DCA is like considered very prestigious. And they came down quite hard on the open carry ban. Basically put it in the Bruin and skilleted it. It was roasted. And this is not too long after the courts upheld the open carry ban back in 2017. So now, but this is a first district court of appeal ruling. So you might be wondering, well, what does that mean for the rest of the state? Well, it's going to apply because the government is not appealing it. The Attorney General has like specifically indicated this is good. We're not touching it. And also orders the state law enforcement to not continue enforcing the open carry ban. Now, this was very frustrating to shitheads all over the state. This will be official September 26th. So right now it's in a like very weird like position because the law is still there. The Supreme Court hasn't done anything. The Supreme Court of Florida hasn't done anything. It's still very much on the books, but there's an uncontested like middle level court opinion that says this is unconstitutional. So like some people have chosen to just start open carry already. And some sheriffs have said, we're not going to bother you. And others have said, don't try. But it would be very, very interesting to see what would happen if you did go out and get arrested for open carry in the next few days, right before the 26th of September. Because it's like, it's almost as if it's like you're challenging qualified immunity, right? Because everyone has known the Attorney General told you not to enforce it, and then you do it anyway, right? Like it would be really weird. But all that aside, yeah, Uthmeyer told law enforcement agencies not to arrest law-abiding citizens carrying a firearm in a manner that is visible to others. And he says that open carry is the law of the state. Here's his tweet. I'm issuing guidance to Florida's prosecutors and law enforcement in light of the first DCA's decision in McDaniels v. State, because no other appellate court has considered the constitutionality of Florida's open carry ban since the SCOTUS decision in Bruin. The first DCA's decision is binding on all Florida's trial courts, meaning that as of last week, open carry is the law of the state. Very interesting.
Yep.
Very legally interesting, and procedurally interesting. So
Everybody has to go in the comments and they have to say whether or not open carry is based or it's cringe. So you just say based.
So,
Or
yeah, that's
cringe.
the thing, right? I've lived my whole life. Well, no, I lived in a couple states where I could have open carried, and every time I saw someone doing it, I thought to myself, "What an absolute just."
Because I mean, there's a sort of person, right? And I don't mean to stereotype or cast aspersions because you should do what you want, right?
1911 carrier.
There's I wasn't gonna say that. I wasn't gonna go all the way there, but man, yeah, it's a certain sort of person that has a pair of jeans that don't fit very well, and a gun belt that's like very obviously worn out and sagging and twisting and turning over, and
Yeah,
an Uncle Mike's
right.
pancake holster that's just a real piece of shit, and they've got a 1911 that they're carrying with the hammer down. Right, this like everybody can close their eyes and they know what
It's
that looks
always
like.
a fucking 1911.
This,
Or a
this
revolver.
revolvers are somewhat common, but
Yeah.
like this is what that looks like, and it looks bad, right? It's the sort of thing that like, and again, I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't do it or this is a reason for you not to do it. It might be a reason for you to make look slightly more presentable when you do it, but it's like something that somebody will like be behind you at Walmart and take a picture of it and be like, "Dog, what the fuck is this?" And then everyone will agree, you know, anti-gun or pro-gun. The anti-gun people will be like, "You have a gun at Walmart," and the pro-gun people will be like, "You have a pancake holster? You can get a traditional arms holster."
Yeah.
But the ultimately, there's ways to do open carry and have it not be completely cringe. Maybe
I feel like if you're open carrying, it's cringe unless you like have a rifle. Like that's my take on it, because there's a lot of situations. There's a lot of situations, you know, and people always be like, "You actually in Florida, you could do it if you were on the fishing trip." All right, okay.
I'll make it
There
a
are
fishing
other,
trip to Walmart, right, bud?
yeah, there are other situations where like it would make total sense for you to have a rifle, um, and usually it's not for defense against people, right? Like when I walk around my property, I bring a 22 and throw it over my shoulder. Does that have something to do with the fact that I have a insane fixation on 22 guns and feel weird if I don't have one? Yes, but not more than one time. See a snake, you run into some other bullshit, right? It makes sense to be able to, if you're walking somewhere and there's wilderness around, I feel like having a 22 rifle is a good idea, and it was stupid that you couldn't do that. I for one don't think it's cringe to have a, you know, a rifle slung over your shoulder. I do think it's cringe to have a exposed 1911 or
With
like,
its hammer down and a
yeah,
holster that's rolling your belt over on your pants that don't fit very well. Right?
yeah, exactly.
Kind of strange. That's sort of that's sort of the way that open carry looks. And I guess it's like, I guess to expand on this discussion, because I do think it's interesting, it's very much a cultural thing where like if you go like, you know, out west but not the bad kinds of out west, like the northwest but not the Pacific Northwest, further away from the ocean than that. It's like the Nebraska and the Dakotas, Wyoming, these sorts of states. It feels like 90% of people have a gun and most of the time it's open carried, right? It's
Right.
either displayed, like everybody's got a gun, and you know a lot of that's because, you know, maybe bears or whatever, but I think it's a broader cultural thing. It's probably not actually 90%, but you know, me having lived in Illinois most of the time, you never see someone with a gun because you can't do that here unless it's a cop. But it's like loads of people had guns on their hips, on their person, and I think it's just like a socially acceptable thing or a way of life thing for them, where they're used to seeing people with that because, you know, a lot of these people live 30 minutes, and 30 minutes is a quick police response time for some of these people. Some of these people are like an hour and a half away from the nearest police response, so you can forget it, right? You can forget it. A lot can transpire in 5 minutes. Hour and a half, just forget it. And so these people, you know, still have a very like, I'm going to say old west, but it's certainly much more contemporary than that, but they have that sort of a mentality about it where, you know, they live the reality of nobody is coming to save you because they
Right.
can't get there in time because you're too far away from them because there's so much space out there. And so it's probably not actually 90%. Probably if it's more accurate.
I was just thinking about the times I've been to Wyoming, and I'm like, I don't think I saw that many people, but I was probably in a
right. At least out rural, it was like 20 to 30% of people I saw very conspicuously were carrying a gun. Probably more than that concealed carry, because concealed carry, especially with handguns, probably still makes sense in a lot of circumstances. But like a lot of people had guns very obviously, and everybody was very open, and like nobody gawked at it, right? I was probably gawking at it, where I was like, "Whoa, that's so cool to see." But, certainly then you contrast that with like, that's never gonna work in New York. I'm not gonna say 30% of people walking around with guns in New York. They're not gonna
it has to be. I mean, look, I fucking love guns, right?
Yeah.
I think guns are great. I am addicted to spending money on guns.
Me too.
But I sit here, and guys, shit on us in the comment. Explain to us why we're dumb. But like, I sit here, and after this thing happened, and again, I'm in my 30s. I've loved guns for as long as I can remember. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to finally be able to do that. And then I sat there and thought, is there any gun I want to carry openly? And I was like, I was sitting there, and I literally sat for minutes, and I'm just like, it doesn't change my life at all. I was like, the only stuff I could think of was, I think I will ironically do this once just to do it.
Right. And like, property carry is certainly something that I'm not aware of any state that says that you can't carry a gun on your property. So like that was already something that you could do openly. And certainly at that point, right, open carry makes sense. And then for people that have long commutes through wilderness, absolutely makes sense. Or people who are like going down these 2-lane highways that stretch forever and ever and might have to commute in the snow. It makes sense because for whatever reason, carjackers like to get people in the snow. It's strange. It doesn't make sense to me. If I was going to if I was going to carjack somebody, not that I'm thinking about doing this, I would not do it when the weather's that shitty because I don't want to deal with that. It's cold.
I think about carjacking all the time, and I'm doing it in the fall. But yeah, so it's it is what it is. I will say I'm going to do it. I'm going to try. I have probably just going to put a Draco on my chest and just be like,
sling it tight.
Just shoot it. Just do it. But
it's a very interesting cultural thing. I guess that's my sort of thought is that it's not cringe or weird for them to do it. Right. But then like you walk into a Walmart in a very populated area. It's
always a Walmart. It's all like, that's the thing. It's always Walmart. Like that's when I was in Alabama, open carry was totally okay. And I was living in Tuscaloosa, which is of course like, a non-Alabama part of Alabama. But the times I saw people open carry, overwhelming majority, Walmart 1911. American flag of some description on the gun or holster.
Skull. Yeah,
like every fucking time. And it's just like, you kind of, when that keeps happening, you kind of go, I just don't want to look like that guy.
I don't want to be like him.
I hate that guy. Everyone hates that guy. Right. But like, you know what, though, it does kind of look cool. Like somebody who actually,
it's the meme,
like a cowboy,
it's the HR complaint meme where when the very attractive guy says hello Susan, she's flattered, and when the ugly guy says hello Susan, she's very upset. It's that where it's except instead of the way he looked, it's the circumstances in which he exists.
Right.
Where it's like if you live somewhere where it makes sense, it's like, oh, that's so cool. And it's like I have to carry my long gun for my 5-minute drive from my suburb to Walmart. It's like, all right. Or it's like I have to have my pancake holster 1911 that I carry with an empty chamber and the hammer down for if there's trouble at Walmart.
Yeah, if there's trouble at the fucking Publix, right? If
there's trouble at Publix, dude, I can have this gun ready to go within 7 or 8 seconds.
Sorted. But anyway, so next up, here's another thing that's going to make some of the viewers mad. This is the trace. So this is one of the weird things where Trump comes in and does his little adjustments. So years ago, I criticized. I wrote something with Ilya Shapiro about, hey, the ATF is like telling FFLs to deny transfers to people who have driver licenses that say non-binary. That's weird, you know, because you're creating a compliance problem for FFLs. Like you're basic, and you're telling the customer to either select something that isn't on their driver license, and so then the FFL has to deny it because it doesn't match, right? And so I had originally suggested just take sex off of it. Who cares? It's not needed to identify the person. And what they did was they added the non-binary one, right? So now we've got the Trump administration coming in, and we've got this Trace article. Buying a gun is about to get more complicated for non-binary people. So basically, Trump had that EO that says everything in the government is going to go back to two benders, all right? And that's going to include the 4473, and it's going to be a binary option. I feel like it's just kind of weird that they're doing this, and they actually interviewed me at this article, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I stand by the closing statement here. LaRosiere, the gun rights attorney, said it was frankly stupid for some on the right to consider sacrificing the gun rights of trans people in the interest of notching a perceived culture war win. The Second Amendment says the right of the people. I believe that's a right inherent in you as a human being, and it doesn't depend on how you identify. And also, like, we should just never applaud the government denying or frustrating transfers to anyone. And I'd also just like to point out that when the 4473 first came in, and it never should have been a thing, but when it first came in, it was a half postcard. Why the hell is it so, like, why is there so much bullshit on it? You know?
They keep finding new ways to try and frustrate people, and like questions.
And also, like, fill out this whole thing about the stuff that we're going to check on your NICS check. What? Why? Just do the NICS check.
Right. And like, much of this information isn't required to identify you anyway.
Right.
Which is
it's
odd.
A spokesperson for the Liberal Gun Club told the Trace, "I told you so." In a recent interview, and I don't mean that to be as flippant as it sounds, but we knew they were going to try this. Now it's not just trans people. Is it people on the left that they are going to try to disarm, or political dissidents generally? And I think this is this broader weird thing that's leaking out of. But that's, I don't. It's stupid. I just think it's stupid.
It's stupid that like if they're going to make a change to it, they should remove it altogether, because ultimately you can have ideological goals and feel one thing's more noble than another, right? I'm not going to opine on that because I frankly don't care.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think is most relevant to anybody who buys guns is compliance problems for FFLs. Mm-hmm. We saw under Biden that the courts will, for the most part, give the ATF a blank check to revoke FFLs, close them down forever.
Any reason.
For any infraction. And these infractions can be as minor as somebody forgetting to tell you if they're Hispanic or not Hispanic.
Yep. And I have seen that more than once.
A very frequent one that they're going after is people forgot to say whether or not they're Hispanic, because they're like, oh, I'm not Hispanic, I'm not checking a box. Well, you have to say you're not Hispanic. Why?
You have to say you're not Hispanic.
What does this matter for when checking your background? It doesn't.
And also, why is that the only former empire that we care about?
Yes. It's like, but are you Hispanic? It doesn't matter anyway. Okay, all right. But the compliance problem.
Are you a Huguenot?
The compliance problem here is that if an individual has a driver's license that says their sex is one thing or another, right?
Or neither. It says non-binary, right?
Or neither, right? Or there's non-binary, right? And they come into the gun store and they fill out the form. and they mark something that doesn't match their driver's license, or the thing that's on their driver's license can't match the form, you have to either deny them the transfer, which is strange, or you have to just accept that you're going to be creating a compliance problem for yourself, which is, we saw under Biden. They'll just revoke your license for that. So then what do you have to do is not sell guns to these people. And I know there's a certain troop of person that will say, okay, great, you shouldn't sell guns to people like that anyway. That's fine, right? You can have that opinion, but the underlying problem here is that this is just one more way for FFLs to lose their licenses. You can believe that these people, right? You can believe these people should or shouldn't have guns or shouldn't be able to buy guns or whatever. You can have that opinion. I think it's silly to be that wrapped up in it, but the problem is this thing being on the form in its current state at least doesn't manufacture a new compliance problem that FFLs have to worry about, have to train their employees about, and have to deal with. Changing it back to how it was, where it's just two options, you can go like, oh, based only two genders, haha, get owned, libtards. Your local gun store is getting shut down in 2 years, 3 years.
Like they have to, and like, granted, this isn't a huge portion of the right. It's not a huge segment of the population, et cetera, et cetera. That said, you are creating a problem for gun dealers. That's what you are doing.
That's not epic base libs owned. It's just not good because sure this current ATF has drastically toned down the whole zero tolerance thing, but
what about next time?
Right, they don't have to continue doing that.
During zero tolerance, I saw an FFL get pulled from a 5-year-old violation that they found,
and they can go back to that anytime they want to.
Yeah. They can revisit it at any point.
It's not like they needed a rule for it. And the worst thing is that the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act put this more in statute than it was before.
Yep.
And Republicans agreed with us.
Yeah.
So it's a hand grenade that is being lobbed, a culture war hand grenade that is being lobbed at the feet of FFLs, where it's like, deal with it. This is your problem now. Hope you don't lose your license, bud. And I don't ultimately think that's good for, regardless of how you interpret being good for Second Amendment rights. If you believe that people meaning people and people should be able to buy guns is good.
Well, so here, hold on. Let me cut something off at the legs too, because I can already read the comments in my mind's eye that but if you're mentally ill, you shouldn't be buying guns anyway. It's like, okay, dude. So people often say this every time the gender question comes up, and I'm no gender nut, right? Like I'm not into that crap. I'm just a gun rights person. But here's the thing. 922 prohibiting factors include people who are adjudicated by a court to be mentally incompetent, which is like a insanely high bar. If you want to say and make the public discourse, if you are mentally ill at all, right?
If you have a diagnosis or have a condition that's undiagnosed, but everybody can sort of see, right? Because that's sort of just like, I don't know that, I don't know whether or not Musk has a Asperger's or an executive dysfunction diagnosis, but 100% has one.
But mentally ill, right? Let's go by that. You're going to say anyone who's mentally ill shouldn't have a gun. All right, veterans.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. No more gun, right? Because what's the first thing they say to you when you're doing your exit interview? Like, can you sleep at night? This is the other thing. And that's a very common diagnosis, right? And then there's also, my favorite thing is that people are saying, it's the SSRIs. The SSRIs are like this and that and the other thing. Yeah, 33% of the country. Let's just make sure they can't have guns. Why not? Like, it's the level of foot shooting is impressive right now.
Right, especially when the question of veterans and mental issues This isn't a rhetorical thing. The anti-gunners have for a long time tried and for a long time had succeeded in barring veterans who get help from the VA for psychological issues. They have attempted to try and bar them or at least frustrate them from being able to own guns. So if they admit to the VA doctor, anything that has the VA doctor go, there is some risk that you pose to yourself or other people, couldn't buy a gun. That's what the anti-gunners were trying to push.
Sad.
And as far as the way the VA operates, that can be something like you say, I can't sleep very well, or I can see the faces of people that bad things happened to, right? They'll say they can from that infer that you might be a risk. It might be a small risk, but anti-gunners would say that you shouldn't be able to own guns if you pose a small risk to yourself due to something that you did thinking you were serving your country. That's really messed up. This is not a hypothetical. They have tried to do this. I don't think giving the government the ability to do that to somebody you don't like ever ends up being a thing that stops at the group you don't like.
In fact, I'll take it one step further. I think it is a silly goose thing to do.
But a silly migratory bird maneuver.
Yeah. No one likes geese. But you know what everybody likes? MAF Corporation, guys. Go to maf-arms.com and get yourself whatever the hell it is that you want. It's all for sale. Look at this brand new reloading dies for the 9x25 Dylan. That's a fine cartucho available reloading dies for you. Just find all of the things. There's a lot of stuff in stock. There's the AK-BB gun. There's the locking blocks. The Glock 19 locking blocks and parts kits are back in stock, guys. Go to maf-arms.com and use promotional code FUDBusters or Ratman and get yourself a big old juice discount. All right, guys? Go to maf-arms.com. Next up, oh yeah, this is a frustrating one. So at least sometimes we see, insane, like problematic gun policy that is kind of new and interesting, right?
Yep.
So on that, this is a Chicago doctor, and so we're back to that like 2015 meta of let's listen to the physicians about questions of public policy because they know how to kill people and get away with it. This is a Chicago trauma doctor as a plan to shift the cost of gun violence. This is ostensibly he wants to force a compensation fund for gun violence victims, and make gun industry participants pay for it. This is Dr. Anthony Douglas, who is a disgrace to the name, medical resident on track to become a trauma and acute care surgeon, knows the toll of gun violence. Wow. That's great.
Yeah, he's almost a doctor.
Yeah. Gunshot wound victims arrive without insurance cards, but care comes anyway. The invoices flood upwards to victims' families, to hospitals, to Medicaid, to taxpayers. We are subsidizing the cost of firearms, he told me. If they actually carried the accountability, guns wouldn't be as cheap as they are. He is the architect of a policy experiment designed to change that math. This is insane. So this is another incantation of the idea that of just cost shifting. So it's insurance in reverse, right? So normal insurance it works by risk pooling. So a bunch of people come together and they understand that there are externalities that they can't guard against, right? Natural disasters, etc., and even negligence or criminal misconduct of other people. So they get together and they say, hey, let's have this big pile. In case something happens to one of us, we'll all put into this pile so we can take from it. We're going to pool to guard against the risk. This is a much dumber way of looking at that, which is, hey, there's an externality out there I don't like, and I think it's your fault. So you're going to pool to pay them, right? So now it's parties are pooling to protect unknown third parties from a risk caused by an externality.
Right, and the of course the big problem, like when you with insurance, the way it works is it's all statistics, it's all a risk
Right.
calculation, and the insurance company just has to make sure it makes 10%, right? And then it continues to make money so long as the risk exists, and for the sort of risks that get insured, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
The problem with this reverse insurance is you have an unknown number of unknown third parties that were going to have an unknown sort of bill racked up against them. And so while you can still all factor that in statistically, it's going to look really, really weird.
Yeah. And also it just doesn't make sense for the industry to be pooling for the benefit of a criminal third party.
Right.
Like, criminal action is always in court considered a superseding cause of harm. So if you believe that the gun industry is vile, right, in a traditional, like, rational legal perspective, all of the evil that the gun industry baked into the little pistol doesn't matter when someone picks it up and says, I'm going to do something very funny today, right? It gets cut off by that person. That's why this all looks so stupid and why it always winds up being so expensive, because it's not sane math. Like, and the reason it looks this way is because people like dipshit not Dr. Douglas, right? They treat guns as if they have no utility.
Yep.
We don't have the auto companies pay into the National Car Accidents Fund, right?
Because a lot of accidents that are really bad are caused by uninsured drivers.
Yeah.
It's weird how that happens. It's probably because they can't get insured, because it's probably like an opposite of survivorship. It's like a direship bias thing where they don't have insurance because they can't get insured because they drive like a dick, and then they
love crashing.
Like, they love it, dude. Like the big yellow ones, I got to run into those.
It's so easy to hit. But yeah, the concept borrows from other privately funded safety nets. For a century, workers' compensation has replaced uncertain lawsuit, which left both injured workers and employers in limbo. The reliable fund, financed by employers. Money covers medical care and lost wages, and the system puts pressure on companies to make jobs safer. The harm in workers' comp
is the work.
Is at the workplace. How can you not see?
It's like workers' comp because there's money. This is the end of the similarities.
Okay, but check this out. So check out the plan. Under the plan, a gun company's annual contribution would scale with how often its firearms are recovered in fatal incidents, shootings, and sewer slides in Illinois. The more frequently a company's guns are found to create public costs, the more it would pay. Hospitals could build a new fund directly for healthcare costs after a firearm injury, and families could get help with lost wages, emergency relocation, childcare, and transportation. So there's no way that anyone would be incentivized to abuse this type of thing.
Certainly not.
And also, obviously, the incentives would be correct such that for gun companies to make their guns less crimey. You know what this winds up being? It winds up being the cheapest gun has to pay the most. That's all it is.
Yep.
Because it's always going to be an availability issue. Like, we've talked about this in this channel all the time. Toyota Camry Corolla cars are in a lot of accidents because there's a lot of them. They're cheap-ish, and people buy them. Guns like Glocks are going to be found in a lot of crime scenes, not because they're very good at crime, it's because they're kind of cheap, and they're everywhere. This is dearly regarded. This plan.
Right, and I guess since we sort of breezed over it, the way that this would be implemented is that Illinois would have a law, or any state seeking to implement this, because apparently other states are very interested in this idea, which is just fucking great. But this is a second generation. This is how I'd classify it. It's a second generation of anti-gun state trying to dodge PLACA.
Right.
And PLACA is that federal law that says that you
can't sue a gun company for criminal misuse of a product that's not products liability.
Right. And so they've tried to find ways to dodge that, like some sort of like a public nuisance harm invocation, which like that was lazy. And most courts, even in these anti-gun courts, have been like, yeah, no, that doesn't work.
You can't just do that. You can't just rewrite 1,000 years of law like that.
The second generation, they're trying to get away from that heartland of PLACA and are trying to like break new ground where they're just putting a financial burden on gun companies. So the way this would work is an implementing state would say, hey, gun company, if you want to sell your products in our state, you must agree to pay into this fund. And the way you calculate how much you pay into this fund is based off of how many of your guns are used in crimes in our state.
Right. But this will work great because of how intensely profitable guns are, right?
Yeah. The estimation is that a company like Smith & Wesson, whose guns do show up fairly frequently in crime, would be paying an average of $20 per gun. Which you look at and say, well, maybe that's not much, but the problem is that gets passed on to the consumer,
right?
And now the consumer is insuring, the person who's buying a gun is now insuring against the harm caused by the criminal conduct of a third party,
right? That could have been like, and here's the thing. What stops, like, let's say you're Smith & Wesson again, to use that example. Smith & Wesson made a lot of like second and third generation products that, of 9mm and 40 caliber pistols that were police surplus a long time ago and are now free.
Right.
Right. That has to have a significant impact, right? On how they show up in crime. It's just all very stupid. And then on top of that, though, this is weird because it presents a strange dormant commerce cause problem. So at first they were running into PLACA, and then they're like, oh well, we just won't do any lawsuits. Haha, we'll just make this big fund that we can draw from for no reason. Childcare in it, but and it'll be great. It's like, okay, and so you're going to charge companies that are certainly not inside of your state for the privilege of selling your products across state lines.
I'm trying to think. Has this ever been a problem before?
Several
Probably
times.
Not. I doubt
there was a bit of a war that, but
no, I severely doubt that was ever an implication.
Yeah, but anyway, that's once again, trauma surgeons, not policy professionals, and especially not almost trauma surgeons, or not almost policy professionals.
Almost a policy professional.
But tell you this much, you know who is a policy professional with respect to credit card policies? FFL Payments. Guys, FFLpaymentprocessing.com. Buy FFLs, for FFLs, and other good businesses. Go to FFLpaymentprocessing.com. Give them a call. Get set up. Get your local gun shop set up. They're leaving money on the table, guys. It's that simple. Go to the website. There. Next up, this is an interesting one. So this is like in this series of like dipshit lawsuits that are designed to harass gun companies. Seattle has joined the fray in suing Glock for the readily converter-stored machine pistol gun, which, again, is as dumb as it's been every time we've talked about it. But again, so the city is alleging that Glock knowingly allowed its pistols to be modified into machine guns, fueling violent crime in Seattle. This, of course, is completely unsupported because Glock quite deliberately did not do that. And
right.
whenever they did make a machine gun converter, very deliberately made it like impossible to be reverse compatible. All of the stuff is being done by the Xi Jinping himself. He's running the CNCs in Guangzhou. So, but yeah, I don't even know how much there is to really say anything. They're talking about a switch proliferation and all this. It's basic. It's a copycat.
It's another one of these lawsuits that's you're trying to say that Glock has liability for. Ultimately, the weird thing is, yes, these switches do show up in a lot of seizures and arrests in these major cities. But the interesting thing is they are very infrequently actually used to hurt people.
Yeah, they're used to do silly things.
There's reasons for that. And, the tragic thing is most of the time that, well, not most, I don't want to say most, a lot of the time that somebody ends up being hurt by one of these things, it's a completely innocent bystander, like 1,000 yards away, because as they spray these things through the night, those bullets have to land somewhere, and in urban areas, right? They end up landing in somebody unrelated to this feud about who's the better SoundCloud rapper, right? Shot, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
but there's not a lot of people numerically that this actually happens to.
Right.
So these lawsuits are trying to say that Glock's liable, but not for a particular person or a lot of people getting hurt, but because it's possible for someone to convert it at all, which is really, really ridiculous. Because ultimately, the same logic can be ascribed to a great many number of firearms, like AR-15s. Absolutely can be wrapped up in the same thing, because all it takes is one actual machine gun converter to drop into the gun, and then you're there. Which is, again, ridiculous. It shouldn't work this way, and ultimately, PLACA should be the resolution to these things, because gun companies cannot be made liable for the criminal misuse of their products.
And on top of that, it's insane, right? Where's the actual harm you're alleging? You're alleging that somebody else has modified this gun, and so Glock didn't completely stop production and make it so that your favorite state, California, like couldn't get its gun. It's just stupid. It's just, and I love this little bit, because here's how you can tell that the Glock is the switch problem, right? According to the city's complaint, Seattle has seen an alarming rise in crimes involving Glock pistols modified with switches. In 2020, Seattle police officers collected 2,514 spent casings from the scenes of shootings. In 2023, that number had soared to 5,746 casings.
There's a lot of bullets being fired. But that's not great, because they're being fired in criminal contexts here, right? But is there an increase in harm?
Right.
How about this? I don't know that I've seen data to say one way or the other, but I would not be surprised if the number of people hurt, certainly the number of people hurt per bullet, is way down. Right. So they're saying, like, well, there's way more bullets being fired. The number of people being hit by bullets has to be lower. It has to be lower, because of the general controllability of a Glock with a switch on it, right?
This is also funny. The lawsuit alleges that Glock has known for decades that its semi-automatic pistols can be easily converted into machine guns, noting that Gaston Glock, company's founder, saw a prototype Glock switch as early as 1988, when he told the inventor to stop development and leave it as a curiosity. The lawsuit alleges that from that meeting, Glock knew that anyone could create a simple device that turned a Glock 17 into a machine gun, and goes on to say that despite years of rising violence and growing alarm from law enforcement, Glock has made no meaningful effort to change its weapons or limit the spread of these conversions.
Limit the spread of these conversions. What are they supposed to do? Like send a hit squad to China and bust down
Unlike other manufacturers who have voluntarily adopted safer standards, the city alleges Glock intentionally chooses to maintain a design that facilitates illegal conversion. Okay.
Because like okay, because this is for YouTube, I won't give specifics, but I guess the three major guns that cops are using these days for their service guns,
mm-hmm.
it's really only the 320 that doesn't have a switch for it. Because there is a switch for M&Ps. There's certainly switches for Glocks, right? So like, yeah, the other manufacturers, I guess really the big one, right, that I'm trying to say is the M&P does have a switch that exists for it. And if people want to point to like, oh, well, other manufacturers don't have this problem, who?
Yeah.
Walther and SIG, who like are the third and fourth numerically of police officers using these things. Seems like the number two choice for cops is these guns that you say are like one step away from being machine guns. That's really weird. Why would it be that way?
Because you should go to the revolver.
Because of course, ultimately the design characteristics and choices that went into these firearms weren't such that they were trying to make things that were one step away from being machine guns. It was such that they're trying to make a reliable pistol that people would want to buy that's also affordable.
And would you believe that a reliable pistol that's also affordable doesn't have 18 layers of mechanical interlock between the trigger and sear? So it's like, whatever.
Of course, even stacking up interlocks, right? The one that I always like to get back to is
the high power.
The Browning high power is, again, not going to give specifics. The Browning high power is even easier to make switch because the breaking of parts or installing parts that were not fit in a particular way, right? New factory fresh parts can result in things that make the gun shoot faster than perhaps originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
The high power has this quirk happen with multiple different parts in the gun, can either break or wear funny or not be fit correctly to the gun, such that this will then happen. But of course, they're not going to say the high power is a problem, even though it's drastically easier to convert, because it doesn't need additional parts to convert it. It can just be, because there's not that many of them out there or whatever, right? So ultimately, the thing that they're decrying here is that they can't do anything about it except piss and moan. And so here's the pissing and the moaning.
They're doing a great job of it. It's, just like with the other thing, it all comes down to popularity. That's the end of it. You know what I got an example of though here? Look at that. Look who's open carrying in 1911.
Whoa, that's what you look like, by the way. You look just like that. If you
look like that 200-year-old French woman, green.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got it. Guys, look, this is the patriotpatch.co. This is the patch of the month club. This is what you get every month. You get this nice, cool little surprise. You get a sticker with you get 3 levels of the art, right? You get the original concept sketch. You get the actual patch made of that nice soft PVC. And look, it's 3-dimensional. See? 3-dimensional. And you get the sticker, right? So that's like, I don't think I've had one like that before. But yeah, Patch of the Month Club. Patriot Patch has been the longest time supporter of the show. You can use promotional code TWIG10 to get yourself a discount. So guys, show them the love, show them the spirit. They also got new. Oh yeah, look, I saw this the other day. More awesome stuff is now available on patriotpatch.co. And there's some cool stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah. Little front towards enemy, front toward fatty, little claymore magnets and keychains and stuff. It's kind of cool. Really cool. So guys, check them out. Patriotpatch.co. Use promotional code TWIG10. Join the Patch of the Month Club. Get your little surprise. Ugh. It's 3:16 a.m.
Yep.
All right, guys, we've got a Fun Blaster coming out soon. It's the Cop 357 Magnum Derringer gun. So be sure to check out. Be sure to subscribe to Fun Blasters to check that one out. Ivan, you got anything to say?
Never.
No, yeah, dude.
Nothing interesting. I like shotguns a lot. The shotgun started getting good with the Browning Auto 5. And from that point, John Browning solved all of the questions that you'd want to solve in an automatic shotgun. And the progression past there was just a series of incremental improvements trying to change things such as the general aesthetic.